Have you ever blindly followed your GPS navigation, even when it looked like it was steering you straight into a lake?
Oh, yeah. Or like down some totally unpaved, abandoned logging road where you definitely shouldn't be driving.
Right, exactly. Like you see the water approaching and your common sense is just screaming at you, but some part of your brain goes, well, the screen says turn left, so I guess I'm turning left.
You just surrender to the blue line?
Yeah, you really do. And well, welcome to the deep dive. Because today, our exact mission is to explore what happens when the entire global financial system starts doing exactly that.
It's a terrifying thought, honestly.
It is. We are exploring a really specific, really fascinating observation record from Tommy Yoshida, also known as Yoshida Tsutomu.
Right. And we're looking at a document here that exists in both Japanese and English.
Yeah, and it captures his real-time reflections on how AI is just quietly entering the realm of finance. And, the profoundly unsettling questions this raises about human judgment.
But before we go any further, um, we really need to set the stage for how we are approaching this material today.
Yes, we have some strict ground rules for you. First, I need to explicitly state that this deep dive is not about evaluating AI.
Right. No tier lists today.
Exactly. We are not here to grade the technology or debate, which language model is superior. This is also not a tutorial on how to use AI to optimize your business workflow.
Definitely not.
And perhaps most importantly, this deep dive is absolutely not about arriving at a neat, perfectly wrapped conclusion.
We're really embracing the unfinished today. As Yoshida points out in his own dual language records, we are looking at unfinished thoughts.
Ending questions, really.
Yeah, pending questions, unclosed ideas. I mean, we are in a transition period right now. The dust just hasn't settled on the AI revolution at all.
No, not even close.
So rather than trying to force a definitive answer or, pretend we have all the solutions, our goal is simply to observe the boundary shifting in real time.
And because of that, there is a discomfort clause we need to put on the table.
A discomfort clause.
I like that.
Yeah, because as we talk about how language, technology, and human judgment interact, especially drawing from Yoshida's deeply Japanese context, some of this might feel a little unnatural.
It's going to rub against some of our Western business instincts, for sure.
Right. You might feel a slight friction in the ideas or a sense that things just aren't resolving cleanly. And I want you to know that is entirely intentional.
We're leaving that discomfort uncorrected.
Exactly. Uncorrected, so you can actively observe the very changes and tensions we are discussing.
Because that friction, actually, it tells us something vital is happening. When a massive technological shift doesn't perfectly map onto our old comfortable ways of doing things.
That gap.
Yeah, that gap. That specific awkwardness is exactly where the most valuable insights live.
Okay, let's unpack this. Let's start with how AI actually sneaks up on us, because Yoshida's initial observations highlight something, well, incredibly subtle.
It doesn't happen all at once. Right. The takeover doesn't arrive like some sci-fi movie with rogue robots kicking down the doors of a Wall Street bank and declaring themselves the new CEOs.
It is far quieter than that.
Mm.
Yoshida previously observed AI in terms of its general behavior. He was specifically looking at how it handles meaning and the distance between AI outputs and human judgment.
The early days were all about those boundaries.
Exactly. The big questions in the early days of adoption were always, where should we stop? How much of our daily analytical work should we actually hand over to the machine?
And the grand illusion of our current era is that we firmly believe we are in total control of that handoff.
Which is, well, it's largely an illusion.
It is. In the sources we are looking at, Yoshida points to specific, very common entry points in the financial sector. Things like risk assessment, fraud detection, customer interaction.
The standard stuff.
Right. And initially you look at these and think, fantastic, this is a massive technological upgrade. The AI is acting purely as a support system.
It's just a tireless digital assistant.
Exactly, highlighting a weird 2 a.m. transaction on your credit card.
And think about what that looks like in a typical banking environment. It just looks like an extension of the basic tools financial professionals have literally always used.
It's just a faster calculator.
Yeah, a faster calculator or a more comprehensive spreadsheet that can read millions of rows in a split second. In those early comfortable stages, the human being is still very much the core actor.
The AI is just the retriever.
Right. It fetches data, it flags a statistical anomaly, and it places that anomaly right on a human's desk for review.
But then there is a fundamental shift in the dynamic. Let's go back to that GPS analogy for a second.
Okay, yeah.
When you first buy a GPS for your car, it is purely support to help you read a physical map. You still know your general route to the grocery store or the neighboring city.
You're still driving.
Right, you just use the GPS to confirm, that you are taking the right highway exit or to see if there's traffic ahead. But eventually, after a few years of reliance, you stop looking at the road entirely.
You stop memorizing your own neighborhood.
Exactly. The GPS stops being a helpful suggestion and becomes the absolute premise of your journey. You just blindly execute its turns. You don't even know where north is anymore. You just know the blue line tells you to go straight.
And the danger there is just how quickly that psychological surrender happens without us noticing. The moment you stop looking at the road, the tool has dictated the entire reality of your journey.
It builds the world for you.
Right. And Yoshida noticed this exact same psychological surrender happening in banking and finance. What was once a support tool slowly, quietly morphs into the premise.
It's a massive shift.
It's a monumental structural shift in human behavior. Decisions are no longer being made with AI. They are being made within a framework that has already been shaped by AI.
That distinction is chilling when you really visualize it in a corporate setting.
Oh, absolutely.
Making a decision with AI means I am the boss, sitting at my desk, consulting my digital advisor before I make the final call.
You still have the power.
Right. But making a decision within an AI framework means the AI has already defined the reality of the situation. It's built the walls, painted the sky, and I'm just operating inside its invisible parameters.
Consider what that actually means for something like fraud detection, which we mentioned earlier. When it's a support tool, a human investigator looks at an account, feels suspicious, and says, let me run this through the AI to see if there are hidden historical patterns here that I'm missing.
They initiate the inquiry.
Exactly. But when the AI becomes the premise, the dynamic reverses completely. The AI simply flags an account as fraudulent based on thousands of hidden variables, freezes the assets, and the human's entire job is reduced to either blindly clicking approve on the AI's action or trying to prove the AI wrong.
Which is basically impossible.
It is. Proving a highly complex neural network wrong is incredibly difficult, often impossible, because the AI's reasoning is totally opaque to the human looking at the screen. The premise of the entire interaction has been dictated by the machine before the human even had their morning coffee.
The human isn't an investigator anymore in that scenario. They are just a rubber stamp for a digital premise.
A rubber stamp, yeah.
They are staring at a dashboard with red light. They have no idea why the light is red, but their job is just to tell the customer, sorry, the light is red.
And that changes the whole nature of banking.
It does. If the bank becomes a vending machine where you put data in and get a robotic decision out, the entire social contract is broken. But we can't just unplug the servers.
Yeah, we're way past that point.
So how does a human institution survive an environment where the math is simply faster than the morality? And this brings us to why Yoshida focuses so heavily on finance specifically.
Because finance is not a game. And it is not just an abstract spreadsheet. It is literally the circulatory system of society.
It dictates everything.
It really does. It dictates who gets to buy a home, which small business survives a bad quarter, and how communities actually grow.
And Yoshida brings a very specific, deeply rooted Japanese perspective to this. In this context, finance isn't just about pure algorithmic math.
Right, it's not just moving numbers.
No. It's not just about moving numbers around a ledger to squeeze out maximum efficiency or quarterly optimization, which, let's be honest, is often the dominant Western narrative.
Absolutely.
It involves money, yes, but it fundamentally involves Nimawashi consensus building. It relies on long-term stakeholder capitalism, deep interpersonal relationships, and implicit trust between the institution and the community.
To understand the friction Yoshida is highlighting, you really have to understand how an AI shatters that specific cultural expectation.
How so?
Well, in a traditional relationship banking model, a local branch manager knows the business owner. They understand the context of a bad month. An AI's instantaneous, mathematically optimized decision doesn't care about context or local relationships.
It just sees the data points.
Exactly.
Yeah.
What's fascinating here is that the core issue isn't even about whether the AI is right or wrong. The friction centers entirely around the concept of responsibility.
Responsibility.
Yeah. In finance, pinpoint accuracy and microsecond speed are important, sure. But they aren't the final goals. The ultimate unavoidable question is always, who takes responsibility?
When things go wrong.
Right. When a loan is denied and a family loses their business, when an account is erroneously frozen and a company misses payroll, when a massive investment goes sideways, who physically and morally absorbs the weight of that failure?
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting because I want to pause and push back on this a little bit, kind of playing devil's advocate for the listener here.
Sure, go for it.
If I am the listener, I'm probably thinking, wait, let me stop you there. If the AI is flagging fraud instantly, isn't that a good thing?
Yeah, it seems like it, yeah.
Right. I'm struggling to see why making my credit card safer or making loan approvals mathematically flawless is a problem. If an AI is statistically 99% accurate at assessing the risk of a small business loan, and a human loan officer is only 80% accurate because they get tired or distracted or have unconscious human biases.
Which humans absolutely do.
Exactly. Shouldn't we want the AI to take over? Why does it feel so uncomfortable to let go if the raw math says the machine is objectively better?
That is the exact tension Yoshida is observing, and it is a brilliant question.
Hmm.
The discomfort isn't about the math. The math is undeniably better.
Okay.
The discomfort is about what happens when that 1% failure rate inevitably occurs. Think about the mechanism of accountability.
How we handle mistakes.
Right. If a human makes a mistake, there is a clear process. There is a social contract. You can look across mahogany desk at a person and say, you made an error in judgment, you ruined my credit, and here are the professional and social consequences for you.
You can demand an explanation.
Yes, but if an AI makes a mistake because it's operating on a premise we don't fully understand, who takes responsibility?
Right.
The developer who wrote the code 5 years ago,
Probably not.
the bank manager who just bought the software license, the algorithm itself.
I mean, you can't fire an algorithm.
Exactly.
You can't look a server rack in the eye and know that it understands the gravity of ruining someone's life.
And this raises an important question about the changing location of decisions. The introduction of AI in this space feels less like a simple software upgrade and much more like a seismic shift in where decisions physically and philosophically reside.
The actual location.
Yeah. The human employee is left in this incredibly strange limbo. They're sitting at the desk, their nameplate says they are in charge, but the actual decision was formed deep inside a server farm miles away before the file ever reached their monitor.
Oh man, think about the last time you, the listener, called customer service for a major corporation.
We've all been there.
You have a complex problem, you explain it to the representative, they completely agree with you that it makes no sense, but then they say those dreaded words.
I'm sorry, but the system won't let me override it.
Yes.
Yeah.
You have probably felt that exact blood-boiling frustration. That representative is the human sitting outside the premise of the AI. They have the illusion of responsibility.
But no actual power.
Right.
Yeah.
In reality, they are just a meat shield for the AI's liability. That is the unnerving friction Yoshida is pointing out. It's the discomfort of realizing your job title says decision maker, but your actual daily reality is decision acceptor.
And this fractures the very foundation of trust we talked about earlier. If you are a customer and you know the bank is just running your life through a black box that the teller doesn't even understand, the relationship between you and the institution dies.
The trust is just gone.
Completely. It is no longer a relationship built on mutual societal trust. It's just a sterile interaction with an unfeeling vending machine.
So we find ourselves at a critical juncture. The technology is advancing. Yoshida makes it very clear in his records that this evolution cannot and should not be stopped.
The servers aren't getting unplugged.
Right. So where does that leave human judgment? How does a human institution survive an environment where the math outpaces our ability to understand it?
That is the crux of the observation. The advancement of AI is a given force. It is going to get smarter, it is going to get faster, and it will become deeply integrated into the invisible plumbing of our world.
It's inevitable.
But the question of where human judgment remains is fundamentally a human issue, not a technological one. We cannot ask the AI to decide how much autonomy we should give up, because the AI is programmed to optimize.
It wants full control.
Always.
Mhm.
It will always say, give me 100% control because I am 100% efficient.
Right. So Yoshida proposes this profound structural concept to counter that relentless push for optimization. He talks about the critical need for a margin, or a blank space.
Yohaku?
Yes, in Japanese the term is yohaku, and I love this concept because finance, and really any major societal pillar, cannot be reduced to mere mathematical efficiency. We might need to deliberately, almost stubbornly leave a space where everything isn't perfectly automated.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, this idea of the margin, or yohaku, is incredibly powerful because it flies in the face of modern corporate logic.
How do you mean?
Well, In Western business philosophy, a blank space is almost universally seen as a flaw. It's an inefficiency waiting to be eradicated.
Hmm.
If there's a gap in the workflow, if a process takes 2 days instead of 2 milliseconds, you hire a consultant to build an automated bridge over it.
You optimize it away.
Exactly.
But Yoshida is framing it completely differently. He isn't saying we should be slow just to be slow.
Far from it. In his observation, this margin is not an excuse for delay. It is not a technological lag or an old guard's stubborn refusal to modernize.
It's deliberate.
Very deliberate. It is a sacred structural space purposefully engineered into the system so that a human being can enter the process, absorb the context, and actually accept responsibility for a decision.
Okay, what does that actually look like in a digitized office space? Let's make this concrete for the listener. Are we talking about like a mandatory 24-hour waiting period before an AI's decision is sent out? Or an analog, paper-based review committee that meets on Fridays?
It could be exactly that, yeah. Imagine a modern loan department. The AI processes the data instantly and recommends a denial.
Okay.
A corporate margin, a yohaku, would be a structural rule that the denial cannot be issued automatically. It must be sent to a physical committee of loan officers who must sit in a room, review the AI's premise, and physically sign their names to a document stating why they agree with the AI.
So they aren't just recalculating the math.
No, the math is done. They are pausing the relentless speed of the conveyor belt just long enough to attach human accountability to the outcome.
It's like a circuit breaker, but for morality and accountability. The margin is the physical and temporal space where a human looks at the situation and says, I see the AI's premise, I see the data, but I'm stepping into this blank space to put my name on this outcome, and if it ruins this person's life unfairly, you can fire me.
Without that forced, deliberate space, responsibility simply evaporates into the cloud.
It just disappears.
Completely. You need a gap in the relentless speed of automation for a human to actually feel the weight of what they're doing. If the AI prepares the document, evaluates the risk, and pre-signs the approval, there's no margin. There's just momentum.
But I have to be honest, this makes me really question our collective willpower.
How so?
Well, are we as a society actually capable of maintaining this margin? Because I look at the corporate world and the temptation of pure speed and cost-cutting efficiency is just overwhelming.
It's a huge temptation.
If leaving a margin means a bank has to pay a team of humans to review loans, and their process takes 2 days to approve instead of 2 seconds, won't the free market just mercilessly punish the bank that leaves the margin?
That's the fear.
Customers want instant gratification. Shareholders want lower overhead. Will the temptation of pure efficiency slowly erase these blank spaces before we even realize they are gone?
That is the exact vulnerability Yoshida is exposing in his notes. Defending the margin requires a conscious, painful, collective decision that efficiency isn't the only metric of value.
Which is hard for us to do.
Very hard. Historically, human beings are not very good at resisting convenience. It is so much easier to let the GPS drive you into the lake than it is to pull out a paper map, find your bearings, argue with your passenger about the route, and take responsibility for your own navigation.
It takes immense effort to retain the burden of judgment. It's heavy.
It is a heavy burden.
It is so much easier to let the machine carry the weight. But Yoshida is warning us that if we let the machine carry the weight, we also hand over the fundamental human element of the transaction. We lose the trust, the relationship, and the societal accountability that makes institutions actually function.
And we return perfectly to that discomfort clause we mentioned at the very beginning of this deep dive.
Right.
It feels incredibly unnatural in the 21st century to sit in a boardroom and say, let's artificially slow this down. Let's deliberately not use this amazing tool to its absolute maximum capacity.
It goes against everything we're taught.
It goes against every instinct of modern business and tech development. But that friction, that deeply uncomfortable feeling of holding back, is the sound of us trying to preserve human judgment in an environment that no longer strictly requires it.
So what does this all mean for you? We promised you at the start that we weren't going to give you a neat little takeaway or a 5-step plan for AI integration.
No neat conclusions here.
But we do want you to apply this profound observation to your own world. Think about your own life, your own daily habits, your own work environment.
Where is the AI shifting?
Exactly. Where is AI, or even just basic algorithmic automation, shifting from a tool you use to the very premise of your decisions? Are there areas where you've already stopped looking at the road and you're just following the turn-by-turn directions of a system you don't fully understand?
Look closely at your own profession. Where are the margins?
The yohaku.
Yes. Where are the blank spaces where you must still claim responsibility? And ask yourself, are you actively defending those spaces? Or are you quietly letting them be optimized away for the sake of convenience?
It's a tough question.
True to Yoshida's intent, we are simply pointing out where this boundary is quietly moving. We want you to observe this shift alongside us, in your own context.
The boundary is moving right under our feet, and the ground feels a little unstable right now. And as we leave you today, I want to leave you with one final provocative thought built on Yoshida's observations.
Something to think about.
Something for you to mull over as you go back to your desk or look at your phone or interact with your own automated tools.
What is it?
If AI eventually fully shapes the premise of a financial decision or any major life decision, and we artificially leave a margin for a human to make the final call,
Right.
is that human actually exercising independent judgment? Or have we just created a margin for a human scapegoat to take the blame when the AI's premise inevitably goes wrong?
Man, that is the question we have to answer before the margin disappears entirely.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. Keep observing.